Ladies and gentlemen, I want to begin today with an idea that might surprise you. In fact, it may challenge the way you've been thinking about your own life for years. People often come to me and say, "Jim, I wish I were more consistent. I wish I had more discipline." And I always smile because I know what they're really saying. They're saying, "Jim, I think consistency is a talent, something some people just naturally have. But let me tell you something that can change your entire direction. Consistency is not a talent, it's a system." Now that's good news, because if it were a talent, then only a few could possess it. But if it's a system, then anyone can build it. Anyone. And that includes you. See, most people misunderstand consistency. They think it's about waking up every morning fired up, ready to conquer the world. But consistency has very little to do with excitement. In fact, some of your most consistent days will be the days you feel the least inspired. Consistency is built on something deeper than emotion. It's built on a philosophy, a way of thinking that controls the way you act. Let me give you a question to think about. Why is it that two people with the same goal start on the very same day with the same enthusiasm, and one of them becomes extraordinary while the other fades by week 3? It isn't luck, it isn't talent, and it certainly isn't motivation. Motivation is a spark. It ignites quickly and burns out quickly. But consistency, that steady, daily fire that comes from design, from structure, from philosophy. Today, we're going to explore that. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and look at what consistency really is. Not the version you see on social media, people waking up at 5 a.m., running 10 miles, reading 2 books before breakfast. I'm not talking about theatrics. I'm talking about that quiet, dependable, steady rhythm of daily disciplines that build a future so strong it surprises even you. See, the real story is this. People don't fail because they're incapable. They fail because their system is incapable of holding the weight of their ambitions. And the moment you learn how to build a system, your system consistency stops being a struggle. It becomes a natural extension of who you are. So if you've ever said, "Jim, I wish I could stick with it. I wish I could follow through. I wish I could stay on track," I've got excellent news for you. You don't need a new personality. You don't need more talent. You don't even need more time. What you need is the blueprint, the architecture, the framework, and that's what we're going to build today. Because consistency is not magic. It's not mysterious. It's not reserved for a special class of people. Consistency is a system. A system built the Jim Rohn way. And once you understand it, once you apply it, once you practice it, my friend, the results will astonish you. Now let's talk about one of the great misunderstandings of personal development, willpower. Most people believe willpower is the engine behind consistency. They say, "Jim, I just need to push myself harder." But let me tell you something that may save you years of frustration. Willpower was never designed to carry the full weight of your life. It's too weak, too temporary, too inconsistent to build anything that lasts. See, willpower is like a muscle. Use it too much, and it gets tired. Rely on it alone, and you'll burn out. That's why so many people start strong and then wonder why. By week 3, they feel exhausted, discouraged, and right back where they started. They think something is wrong with them. But nothing is wrong with them. The problem is with their philosophy. Your philosophy is the foundation. It's the set of beliefs that shapes how you think, how you interpret life, and ultimately, how you act. And if your philosophy is weak, your consistency will always collapse under pressure. But if your philosophy is strong, my friend, consistency becomes almost automatic. Let me share something I learned years ago. Your philosophy determines your attitude. Your attitude determines your activity. Your activity determines your results, and your results determine your lifestyle. That's the chain. That's the order. And it always begins at the top with philosophy. Here's the mistake most people make. They're trying to change their activity without changing their philosophy. They say, "Jim, I want to start reading every day," but deep down they still believe reading doesn't matter. Or they say, "Jim, I want to save money," but their philosophy still whispers, "Spend it, you only live once." No wonder they fall off track. Their activity is fighting against their beliefs. And listen, belief always wins. Consistency doesn't break because of the activity. It breaks because the philosophy underneath the activity is cracked. If I believe discipline is punishment, I'll avoid it. If I believe saving is scarcity, I'll resist it. If I believe effort is suffering, I'll escape it. But if I believe discipline is freedom, saving is security, effort is privilege, well, now the whole game changes. The moment your philosophy upgrades, your actions follow without force, and consistency stops being something you drag yourself into and starts being something you're naturally pulled toward. Let me give you an example. If you tell a person you should read more, they'll treat reading like a chore. But if you help them adopt a new philosophy, income seldom exceeds personal development, reading becomes the most valuable part of the day. Nothing in their environment changed. The book didn't change. All that changed was philosophy, and philosophy changed activity. So here's the big question I want you to consider. What philosophy is guiding your life? Is it helping you or hurting you? Is it lifting you or limiting you? Because without a clear, powerful philosophy, you'll always rely on willpower, and willpower, well, it runs out. But a sound philosophy, one built on principles, values, and truth, that becomes renewable energy, endless energy. The kind of energy that builds routines, habits, results, and eventually lifestyle. Remember this, if you want consistent activity, you must first build a consistent philosophy. Because your life doesn't move in the direction of your intentions, it moves in the direction of your beliefs. Now let me show you something most people never consider, and it may be one of the most important lessons you learn about consistency. We've talked about philosophy, your internal blueprint. But there's another force working silently every day, shaping your decisions, influencing your actions, and even determining your level of discipline. And if you ignore this force, I don't care how strong your willpower is, you'll struggle. I call it the environment factor. Your environment, my friends, is bigger than your willpower, bigger than your motivation, bigger than your ambition. Your environment has the power to lift you or bury you. And here's the truth. Most people fail not because they lack desire, but because they're surrounded by conditions that defeat them before they even begin. You may want to read for 30 minutes a day, but if your television is screaming at you, the fridge is calling your name, your phone is buzzing every 5 minutes, and the people around you don't value growth, you're fighting a battle you can't win with willpower alone. Not because you're weak, but because your environment is strong. I tell people all the time, your environment is constantly shaping you even when you think you're ignoring it. If the room is messy, your mind becomes scattered. If the people around you are negative, your attitude becomes heavy. If your desk is cluttered, your thinking becomes slow. If your phone is within arm's reach, your focus leaks a little at a time until nothing remains but fragments of attention. Here's the point. You must design your environment with the same care you use to design your goals. Let me give you a simple example. If you want to eat an apple instead of a cola, don't keep the cola in the refrigerator. Willpower won't save you at 11 p.m. Philosophy alone won't save you at 11 p.m. But an environment with apples visible and cola absent, that's a winning environment. That's design. If you want to read more, put a book on your pillow. Make it the last thing you touch before sleep. If you want to save more, automate your savings so the money moves before you even see it. If you want to exercise, put your shoes by the door. Make the discipline easy and the neglect difficult. Your environment should whisper your goals to you when your motivation is silent. And let me tell you something about people. People are part of your environment too. If you spend your time with people who gossip, complain, criticize, procrastinate, you're borrowing their philosophy without even realizing it. But spend time with someone who's growing, learning, committed, disciplined, purposeful, and you'll rise just by being in their presence. You don't have to cut everyone out. That's not the message. But you do need to understand influence. Influence is powerful. Influence is subtle. Influence is constant. Jim Rohn said it best. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And that includes their habits, their energy, their ambition, their expectations, and their standards. So here's the big shift. Stop trying to use willpower to fight your environment. Instead, use your environment to support your willpower. Build a room that encourages discipline. Build a routine that encourages focus. Build relationships that encourage growth. Because once your environment is aligned with your goals, consistency becomes almost effortless. Not because life gets easier, but because now your surroundings are working with you instead of against you. Remember this simple rule. Design beats desire every time. Now let's move into the first level of building true consistency. Designing your system. If philosophy is the engine, then design is the steering wheel. It gives direction, it gives form, it gives structure to your intentions. And without structure, even the best intentions drift away. One of the greatest lessons I ever learned is this. Don't start with ambition, start with arrangement. Ambition says, I want to read more. Arrangement says, here is where the book goes. Ambition says, I want to get healthier. Arrangement says, here are my shoes by the door. Ambition wants the outcome. Arrangement builds the environment that makes the outcome possible. And to design your system properly, you must create what I call daily anchors. Solid, reliable touch points that keep your day from wandering off course. Think of them as the handrails of your life. Let me give you 3 anchors every successful person builds. 1. The morning anchor. The morning anchor is your foundation. It sets the tone for the entire day. And I learned long ago, if you own the morning, you own the day. I used to stumble out of bed, rush through breakfast, race through traffic, and by 9 a.m., I was already behind. Then I made one simple decision that changed everything. I took control of my mornings, not by doing 20 things, not by overwhelming myself, but by choosing 1 or 2 simple disciplines to begin every day with intention. Maybe for you it's reading 10 pages. Maybe it's a walk. Maybe it's quiet thinking time. But whatever it is, let it be deliberate. A designed morning builds a designed life. 2, the work anchor. Now, the work anchor is not about what job you have, it's about how you work. Whether you are building a business, studying, working a 9 to 5, or developing a skill, your work anchor creates consistency in productivity. For some people, it's a dedicated hour of focused work. For others, it's 1 key task completed every day before anything else. And when you do this consistently, you begin to build momentum. You start to trust yourself. Your confidence grows because you're following your own system. 3, the evening anchor. And then we have the evening anchor. This is where reflection lives, review lives, reset lives. The evening anchor is the quiet moment when you ask, did I do my disciplines today? Did I stay aligned with my philosophy? What can I prepare for tomorrow? This anchor gives closure to the day and confidence to the next one. Now, let me show you something powerful. Inside these anchors, I recommend what I call the daily 4 disciplines, small actions that compound into major transformation. They come straight from the heart of what I've been teaching for decades. The daily 4 disciplines. 1, money discipline. Pay yourself first. Before you pay bills, before you spend, before you give, pay yourself. Even if it's a small amount, this discipline builds financial confidence. 2, mind discipline. Read 30 minutes a day. Not social media, not random browsing. Read something that builds you, your philosophy, your skills, your future. 3, body discipline. Move daily. You don't need 2 hours in the gym. Just move, walk, stretch. Do something that respects your physical health. 4, relationship discipline. 1, meaningful connection. Say, I love you. Call someone. Express appreciation. Build the relationships that make life rich. These 4 disciplines practiced inside your anchors become the architecture of your life. You don't have to overhaul everything. You don't need 10 new habits. You don't need a perfect routine. You need a system that works on ordinary days, because ordinary days, strung together with discipline, become extraordinary lives. Remember this line. It's not what you do occasionally that shapes your future. It's what you practice regularly. Don't design for intensity. Design for consistency. Don't design for the perfect day. Design for the typical day. Because when your daily system is designed well, consistency stops being a battle and becomes your natural rhythm. Now that we've talked about designing the system, the structure, the anchors, the daily disciplines, I want to take you to the second level. And this is where real transformation begins. Because it's one thing to build a system, but it's another to become the kind of person who lives inside that system naturally. And that, my friends, is the secret. Consistency becomes effortless when you shift your identity. Let me tell you what I mean. Most people say, I'm trying to be consistent. But the moment you say, I'm trying, you've already positioned yourself as someone separate from the behavior you want. Trying is temporary. Trying is fragile. Trying depends on how you feel. But identity is powerful. Identity is enduring. Identity is who you are. Here's the principle. Your habits follow your identity. Your actions are manifestations of who you believe yourself to be. If you see yourself as someone who struggles, you'll find ways to struggle. If you see yourself as someone who quits, you'll find ways to quit. But when you see yourself as someone disciplined, someone committed, someone dependable, your behavior shifts to match the image you hold of yourself. I learned early in my life that if I wanted to change my results, I had to change the story I was living in. Not through hope, not through wishful thinking, but through daily proof. Proof builds identity. Identity builds behavior. And behavior builds destiny. Let me give you an example. A young man I once knew began reading 30 minutes a day. At first, he didn't feel smarter. His income didn't grow, his friends didn't notice, but he kept reading. Month after month, book after book, and slowly, quietly, something extraordinary happened. His self-image began to change. He no longer saw himself as average. He no longer saw himself as limited. The habit didn't transform him on day one, but the identity it created transformed the trajectory of his entire life. By the time he had read 50 books, he didn't have to try to read anymore. He was a reader, and readers read. That's the identity shift. Let me show you how this works in other areas. A person who saves money occasionally remains financially anxious. But a person who sees themselves as a steward of their finances, who pays themselves first, automatically saves without strain. A person who exercises once in a while fights for motivation every day. But a person who sees themselves as someone who honors their body moves without negotiation. A person who tries to be kind struggles when the world gets tough. But a person who sees themselves as compassionate acts with grace, regardless of mood. Identity drives behavior. Now, here's the key question. How do you build an identity? Not by saying it, not by affirming it, not by writing it on your mirror, though that may help. You build identity by practicing small disciplines long enough that your mind begins to trust you. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, your identity grows. Every time you break a promise to yourself, your identity shrinks. You don't need perfection. You need consistency in the right direction. Remember this powerful idea. Small disciplines create strong identity. A $10 savings habit can turn a broke man into a financially wise man. 10 minutes of reading can turn a confused woman into a woman of insight. A simple daily walk can turn a discouraged person into someone who believes in change again. Because the moment you start becoming the kind of person who does these things, you're no longer forcing a habit, you're expressing who you are. When you become the system, discipline is no longer something you chase. It becomes something you live. Now let's move into the third level. And this one is truly remarkable. It's the level where your system, your philosophy, your design, your identity begins to multiply. Not add, multiply. This is where the compound effect takes over. And once it takes over, your life begins to grow in ways that almost seem unfair to the person you used to be. I've said for years that success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. Not occasionally, not when you feel good, not when life is convenient every day. And failure is nothing more than a few errors in judgment repeated every day. It's the same mechanism working in opposite directions. You see, the compound effect is always working. It never sleeps. It never takes a vacation. Every choice you make today is compounding into something. That soda, that apple, that book, that walk, they all compound. And the tragedy is that most people only notice the compounding when it's too late. Let me explain what I mean. You drink the cola today, nothing happens. You drink it tomorrow, still nothing. 6 months later, the scale starts to show something. 5 years later, you're sitting in a doctor's office asking, how did this happen? But the apple works the same way. You eat the apple today, nothing changes. Tomorrow, still nothing. 6 months later, you've got momentum. 5 years later, you're a different person. The difference between the cola and the apple: consistency, time, and direction. The compound effect rewards you in the direction you choose. Let me give you another picture. Imagine placing $1 in a jar every day. $1 isn't much. $1 won't change your life. But put $1 away every day for a year. That's $365. Do it for 5 years, $1,825. Do it for 10 now, you're building wealth. But do you want to know what really matters? Not the money. The identity you built through the discipline. The belief that you can keep a promise to yourself. The confidence that you can shape your future. That's the compound effect. Reading compounds into insight. Exercise compounds into energy. Saving compounds into security. Kindness compounds into connection. Learning compounds into opportunity. And here's the beautiful part. You don't see it working until suddenly you do. That's the magic and the frustration of compounding. At first, it seems painfully slow. Nothing visible is happening. You're planting seeds, but the soil looks the same. You're taking actions, but the mirror looks the same. You're doing the work, but the bank account looks the same. And then one day, almost out of nowhere, the results start to appear. People ask, how did you get so disciplined? How did you get in shape? How did your money grow? How did your relationships transform? How did you learn so much? And the answer is simple. A few simple disciplines practiced every day for a long time. You didn't get lucky, you got consistent. You didn't get brilliant, you got committed. You didn't get a breakthrough, you built one. Most people underestimate what a small daily action becomes when multiplied over years. They overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a decade. Let me tell you a secret. If you give the compound effect 3 years of daily disciplines, you won't recognize your life. Give it 5 years, you won't recognize yourself. Give it 10 years, and the world won't recognize you. That's the power of multiplying your system. Not by giant leaps, but by steady steps. Not by bursts of intensity, but by daily consistency. Not by magic, but by mathematics. The mathematics of compounding. And once you experience it, truly experience it, you'll never doubt the value of small disciplines again, because you'll have seen the miracle for yourself. Now let's talk about one of the most overlooked tools of personal development. One so simple that most people dismiss it before they ever experience its real power. I'm talking about the journal. Not a fancy one. Not a complicated one. Just a place where you record your life, not the results of your life, but the effort that leads to the results. See, most people judge their day by the harvest they reap. They look at the scale, the bank account, the mirror, the progress chart, and if nothing has changed, they feel discouraged. But here's the truth. You don't control the harvest. You control the seeds. You control effort. You control discipline. You control practice. Outcomes take time. Effort happens today. I started keeping a journal years ago, and it changed everything for me. But I didn't record what I achieved. I recorded what I did. Because on those days when doubt whispered in my ear, telling me nothing was happening, I could open that journal and see page after page of effort. And that effort became my proof, my evidence that I was building something beneath the surface. That's what a journal does. It protects you from the lie that nothing is working. It reminds you that every seed planted eventually pushes through the soil. It keeps you faithful to the disciplines when your emotions try to sway you. Let me show you how to use it. Very simple. In fact, too simple for most people. They're looking for complexity, and complexity kills discipline. But simplicity is sustainable. Each evening, ask yourself a few questions. Did I read today? Just yes or no. Not how much you understood, not how you felt, just yes or no. Did I move today? Not how far, not how fast, just yes or no. Did I save today? Even $1 counts. Consistency matters more than the amount. Did I connect today? A message? A phone call? A word of appreciation? These questions track effort, not outcomes. They track process, not performance. And when you stack these little check marks day after day, you begin to feel something remarkable: self-trust. Because success is not just about talent or strategy, it's about the confidence that comes from keeping your own promises. Now, here's something else the journal does. It fights forgetfulness. We humans forget our own progress faster than we forget our passwords. You might have 6 days of perfect habits, then miss one, and suddenly you feel like you've failed completely. But with a journal, you'll see the truth. You didn't fail. You simply missed a day. And missing a day is not the issue. Quitting is. A journal keeps you from quitting. It also creates a record of who you're becoming. Years later, you can open those pages and see the evolving story of your life, your struggles, your wins, your breakthroughs. You'll see how your philosophy changed, how your habits grew, how your identity strengthened. You'll see the fingerprints of discipline all over those pages. And here's a little secret. The journal doesn't just track your life, it shapes your life. You become more intentional simply because you know you'll write it down that night. You become more aware of your choices. You become more honest with yourself. Remember this: when you cannot see the fruit, let the journal remind you of the seed. Let it show you that you are doing the work. Let it keep you steady when the results come slowly. Let it give you confidence that your consistency is compounding, because effort tracked becomes effort multiplied. And a journal becomes the quiet mentor in your pocket, guiding you, grounding you, and growing you one day at a time. Now, before we bring this all together, I want to talk about something absolutely essential, something every human being faces, no matter how disciplined, no matter how determined, no matter how inspired, and that is failure, interruptions, breakdowns in consistency. Some people hear the word failure and immediately feel discouraged. But let me give you a new perspective. Failure is not a cataclysmic event. It is not one big explosion that ruins your life. Failure is a few errors in judgment repeated every day. And success, as we said earlier, is simply a few simple disciplines practiced every day. So here's the good news. If you can identify your errors in judgment and replace them with simple disciplines, you can change your entire future. Let me show you something important. Missing a day is not failure. Missing a week is not failure. Getting off track is not failure. These things are normal. They happen to everyone. But here's where people go wrong. They confuse a slip with a spiral. They let one missed day turn into 2, and 2 turn into 10, and 10 turn into, I guess I'm not consistent. And that belief, that philosophy becomes the true failure. What matters is not the interruption. What matters is your ability to return. And I call this the return path. It has 5 simple steps. Step 1, notice the slip. Most people don't fail because they choose failure. They fail because they stop paying attention. Awareness is the first step back. Ask yourself, where did I drift? What did I neglect? What slipped? Step 2, forgive yourself immediately. This one is big. Guilt is heavy. Shame is paralyzing. And neither one ever produced a single disciplined action. You're not weak for slipping, you're human. So give yourself grace. Grace creates space to grow. Step 3, restart without drama. Don't wait for Monday. Don't wait for next month. Don't wait for a burst of motivation. You don't need a ceremony, you need a reset. The moment you restart, the slip loses all its power. Step 4, reduce the friction. If you slipped, it means something in your environment or your routine created resistance. So adjust the system. Make the discipline easier. Make the distraction harder. Change the setup so the slip becomes less likely next time. Step 5, reconnect with your philosophy. Remember, when your why is weak, your try becomes weak. Revisit your philosophy. Why you started, where you're going, who you're becoming. Refuel the mind so the activity regains meaning. When you follow the return path, something powerful happens. You stop seeing inconsistency as a character flaw and start seeing it as a signal, a message, an invitation to refine the system. And here's what I want you to hear loud and clear. The magic is not in perfection. The magic is in return. Anybody can be disciplined when life is smooth. Anybody can follow through when they feel good. The real mastery, the real transformation comes from your ability to return after you falter. Let me tell you a secret that may lighten your heart. Every consistent person you admire, every successful entrepreneur, every great athlete, every high achiever, they all fall off. They all slip. They all miss days. But the difference is simple. They return quickly. They don't let one missed day turn into a new identity. They don't turn a mistake into a story that says, see, I knew I wasn't consistent. They refuse to quit. And that is what I want for you. Not perfection, not flawless execution, not a life free of interruptions. I want you to become someone who comes back again and again because your system is stronger than your slump. Consistency isn't about never falling. Consistency is about always coming back to the path you chose. Well, my friends, we've traveled a long road together today. We talked about philosophy, how your thinking shapes your actions. We talked about environment, how the world around you can either lift you up or pull you down. We talked about design, building a daily system instead of relying on chance. We talked about identity, becoming the kind of person who naturally follows through. We talked about the compound effect, how small disciplines add up to extraordinary results. And we talked about the journal and the return path, how to stay on the journey even when life interrupts you. And now, here we are at the end of this lesson, and I want you to understand something very clearly. Your new life does not begin next month or next week or tomorrow morning. Your new life begins today, because the only day you can take action is the day you're living right now. When you walk out of here or when you close this video, you'll face the same choices you faced yesterday: the apple or the cola, the book or the television, the walk or the couch, the discipline or the neglect. But today, you will face those choices as someone wiser, someone stronger, someone more aware, someone equipped with a system. And that system, your philosophy, your environment, your anchors, your identity, your daily 4 disciplines will guide you toward a future far brighter than your past. Let me leave you with something simple, something powerful. Don't try to change your whole life at once. Pick one discipline, just one. Practice it today. Practice it tomorrow. Practice it the day after that. String together a few good days. Then string together a few good weeks. Then let those weeks build into months. And before you know it, before you even realize what's happening, you'll look back 5 years from now and whisper to yourself, I can't believe this is who I've become. Because that's what consistency does. It transforms you quietly, gradually, invisibly, until one day the results are so undeniable that even you are amazed. Remember this. Success is something you build. Consistency is something you design. And greatness is something you become. And it all begins not with talent, not with luck, not with motivation, but with one small discipline practiced today. So start today. Start now. Start with what you have, with who you are, with where you stand. Your future is being created in this very moment by the choices you make right now. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And more importantly, thank you for deciding to build the life you deserve.